Okay.
Okay, great. 1, 2, 3, and start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nitanel, and I am the co-founder of Shabbat of a Lifetime. And today I'm very excited to speak with a very good friend, Jodi Samuels, an amazing hostess, an amazing person who has just come out with her own new book, which we'll hear a little bit about. And let's introduce you, Jodi.
So, hi, Natanel. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, as Nati said, I am not only a host, but a community activist. I'm an advocate for special needs. I run a not-for-profit here in Jerusalem, a world traveler, been to 87 countries, and we were true definition of wandering Jews before we moved to Israel. We had lived in 29 apartments in 9 cities in 5 countries, and then we made it home. So we've been here. So we've been here 6 years almost, and we've been living in Jerusalem, and we live just off Emek Raphaim.
Well, in the few years that I have known you, it's always been very exciting around you. The official bio is something like this. Jodi Samuels is an author. She's a connector, a speaker, nonprofit leader, world traveler, a community activist, special needs advocate, a wife and a mom. Jodi founded Jewish International Connection in order to provide community for foreign Jews in New York. And now she also runs outreach in Israel. Jodi and her husband, Gavin, and their 3 children currently live in Jerusalem, where they host hundreds of people every month for Shabbat meals and events in their home. She is author of Chutzpah, Wisdom, and Wine, Journey of an Unstoppable Woman. Well, guys, that is something you can read on paper, but I personally know Jodi for about 4, 5, 6 years now.
Yeah,
something like that. And you are an amazing, amazing person. And I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about your book. But before we get to your book, let's hear a little bit about your journey, about how you actually got to the book and the kind of code journey that we've been going through together the last 4, 5, 6 years with Shabbat of a Lifetime. So I guess, you can hear from your accent that you're South African like myself. You live in Jerusalem. I see from your bio here that you were some time in New York. But in conversation with you, I do remember a stop in Australia. Am I right?
Yeah, we've lived. So I basically met my husband in my gap year after high school on a street corner in Jerusalem. He was lost and he said, "Do you speak English?" And I said, "Yeah," like a good South African. And we started talking, and he likes to say he picked up his wife off a street corner. And I've been giving him directions ever since. But there was many exactly. And there was many years ago. But we connected immediately. And one of our first dates, I told him that I wanted to have hundreds of Shabbat guests every single week. Wow. And I told him I want to have an open home, open door policy. And he said, I think it was like our first or second date, he said, "Me too." So we agreed on that. And then we decided we wanted to move to Israel. But Gavin had just finished, well, he was actually still in medical school when I met him, and he had huge student loans. And for those who don't know, the South African currency is very weak. And at the time, there wasn't many jobs for doctors in Israel and no opportunity to pay off loans. So we thought we'd live for 2 years in these outback places where doctors can work, earn good money. And then we'd come to Israel in 2 years. 2 years took 23 years.
23 years. What a journey.
Yep. And we lived in all these crazy outback places in Australia and New Zealand where we squeezed our own grapes to make grape juice for Shabbat. And we made our own bread, and we lived on avocados and crazy outback, middle of nowhere. And then we moved to a place called the Gold Coast eventually, which is where all the snowbirds go in Australia. And Gavin was working as a doctor in a practice, and they hadn't had a Jewish wedding in their town for 19 years. And Gavin was working as a doctor in a practice, and all these old Jewish people would come in and they'd see his kippah and they'd go, "Oh, I have a granddaughter, she lives here, but she doesn't need any Jews." Or people would see Gavin's kippah and they would be like, oh, wow, my mom's Jewish. And Gavin would be like, oh, that means you're Jewish as well. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. So we started hosting Shabbat meals for all these random people. And there were thousands of backpackers as well that used to come through. They're very big Israeli. It's part of the Hummus Trail in Australia.
Wow.
And in those days, there was no email and no WhatsApp and whatever. So we used to print flyers, and we used to put these flyers on the poles in the neighborhood and leave them at the backpacker hostels. And we met some amazing, amazing people. And we started having like 50, 60 people every Shabbat. We became very famous for our Shabbat meals. And many, many people, including like one of our most crazy stories was there was this couple, and they were like had their dreadlocks and they looked pretty rough. And I asked them where they were staying, which backpacker, and they said they were sleeping in their car. And I said, no, they should come stay at us. And they came for a meal. And they stayed with us for 2 weeks, and they kept this like diary. In those days, they sent, like wrote down everything. And they were like, their time in Australia was the best, most impactful time when they stayed with this couple. And they went back to England and they started hosting people. And then he quit his job and he came to study at Rabbi Riskin's yeshiva, and they're now living in Graz. And they're like, Rabbi and Rebbitzin. And I was like, they were just random backpackers that I pulled off the streets.
Wow.
And then from Australia, from Gold Coast, we went to a place called Sydney. Well, we went to Sydney. We went to a bigger community, and we still were famous for hosting people there. And then we won green cards in the Green Card Lotto. And that's like a diversity visa for most people who don't know. About 50,000 people win it a year. South Africans always know what a green card is. And we landed up... in New York City, in Manhattan, and I thought, oh, there's no need for me to do anything here. We'd been in New York exactly 3 weeks, and someone asked me if a friend that I knew from Australia was studying at Columbia University, and he said, there's all these foreign MBA students and they don't have anywhere to go for Rosh Hashanah. So I landed up having 3 weeks after I arrived and was new myself, had 36 people from 30 countries. And I realized I had this epiphany that Jews who are arriving from around the world to the big city needed a place to go. They needed a Jewish home away from home.
Yeah.
And pretty much ever since then, we were hosting hundreds and hundreds of people every single week. So much so that like at one point, my doorman in New York City was like, I think I figured out what you do. You run a soup kitchen. Because he just could never figure out the food in and out, the people in and out. He assumed I was running a soup kitchen for the needy. And we moved to Israel, and we've been doing the same. And I met you soon after we arrived, and I loved the concept of hosting. So in between all my other guests, we became regular soul hosts.
Yeah. And quite successful ones as well. I remember, some of the stories that you shared with me, some of the meals. I'd love to share with other people. But I guess my question to you is, I know you in the context of Shabbat of a Lifetime, but it sounds like this passion that you have burning inside of you, you and Gavin, starts already in your teens as a young adult. Like, what is it? What is it that drives you? I know what drives me, what I get out of it, but tell us about Jodi.
Someone recently said to me, a friend that I'd known for many years, he's like, I know why you do this. You love being a hero. This is the reason you do it. You just want to be everybody's hero. And I was like, he made me really think about it. It was like a bit of a soul searching. Is that really why I do it? He's like, do I just really want to be a hero? And I thought about it, and I was like, if I just want to be a hero, I would donate money to some organization, get a pat on the back. I certainly wouldn't be the one schlepping the food, cleaning up afterwards, stacking chairs and tables. And I really do it because I believe that we all can change the world in our own little way. Like each one of us can take a personal mission. Like I don't believe I can change the world, but I believe I can change my part of my world or influence my world. And for me, that gives me the motivation to wake up in the morning. I don't want to just breathe air. I want to do something.
That is so special. Absolutely. So share some crazy stories.
So, hosting Soul has been amazing because I've always hosted a lot of Jews. And like the one thing about Jews, we all know they complain a lot, and there's like they're gluten free, and this one's this free and that free, and they look at you, and it takes a while to warm up a group when you have Jews, because they look at you like what is this? I didn't come. I'd rather go to the Big Apple Circus than see these Jews acting out, and they're like pretty judgmental. So it's hard work to break down Jewish audiences. Much, much easier when you're dealing with non-Jews. We love the non-Jewish groups. I actually request non-Jewish groups because I know how easy it is to be able to get non-Jewish groups on board. But I mean, we have had some crazy experiences. One of our first and most impactful experiences was we were like really new hosts, and we landed up hosting a union of Canadian construction workers. It was like a group of construction workers. They came out on a fundraising mission. The head of the union knew someone who had made Aliyah. He was his co-head, and he came and they raised money, and they brought hundreds of thousands of dollars to support programs in Israel. But what had happened was 2 of the people in the group were actually Palestinians, and they didn't want to come for the meal. And the guide told me that when they said they didn't want to come to a settler's house, the guide assured them the settlers don't live in the German colony. And we landed up having this incredible meal where they were doing l'chaims and everybody was crying, and they said they've never ever had, like the woman said she left Israel and the only time she had ever seen an Israeli was a soldier. And men had maybe been more exposed, and she was like, this is the most impactful, and I always thought you guys were so full of hate. And she's like, and there we are singing songs of love and peace and journey, messages of brotherhood. And so that was like one of our first Shabbat experiences, and we saw the power. That group also arrived. There were 33 of them. They came with 33 bottles of wine. We thought, great, jackpot. We are going to have so much wine. They drank all 33 bottles of wine. So
if I'm not mistaken, I think we sent you between 6 or 11 bottles as well.
But they didn't send they didn't bring Tepperberg. They all brought Castile. Each bottle had like 110 shekel price range on it. Anyway, so there was such an amazing experience that I think that got us hooked. But we also, I think I once told you the story that when my daughter was applying to get into school, so initially she didn't get into Hartman Girls, and she really wanted to go there, and it took a little bit of knowing and who's who to get an interview. So we got an interview, we walk in there, and the first question they ask her, there's like the Yoetzet there and the Menahelet and a whole group of people, and the first question they ask her is, if you could be a character in the Bible, a female character, then who would you be? And she says, Sarah. And you almost feel there's like a, in the audience, like, couldn't she come up with someone more obscure? She knows she's coming to this like woman's learning place. And they said, why do you want to be like Sarah? And she goes, well, and of course at the time she's like, I think she's 11, 12. She goes, well, when I grow up, I want to be like my mom. One week we host evangelical Christians. Next week we host Swedish pastors. The week after we host East German politicians on a fact-finding mission. And then we host intermarried families, and sometimes we even host modern Orthodox singles trying to get married. And they just looked at us and they were like, who are you guys? And and they said, okay, great. And it was like within 2 minutes they said accepted. So we thought that was an interesting story. And I think one of our most crazy stories was we had moved into our apartment and we were moving in on the 1st of September. Nati sends me, and anybody who knows Nati sitting right here, how persuasive he can be. There was this Chinese group who always wanted to come to our house. The Chinese were always adamant, and they only wanted to come to us. And I get this message that they want to come. And I'm like, well, we just arrived back that week, and we're moving into a new apartment, and we're starting renovations. And he's like, please, they really want to come to you. So I was not sure, and I was like, okay, let me see. On the Tuesday, I sent a photo through, and it shows there's like plastic sheeting everywhere. And I'm like, I just don't think this is going to work. And you guys said, sit back. The guy says, no, it's fine. They don't mind coming even like that. So I'm like, but Nati, my furniture hasn't come yet. I've got no fridge, I've got no tables, I've got no chairs, no freezer box. I don't have anything. Nati's no problem. I'll send you everything. So the stuff arrives and we get tables and we get chairs and we get benches, and they send us ice boxes with ice and wait stuff and hot plates, everything. And of course, Gavin's now on an overseas trip. He's coming back, like he walks in just into the 36 minutes. We're running like crazy people. These wait staff arrive late. And as one of them plugs the hot plate in, pop, the electricity goes. And we're like, oh my gosh. And like they were doing the renovation. We didn't even know where the electric box was. We couldn't figure out how to get it. These Israelis were, thank God, they were quite like, they were able to figure out how to try warm the food. We lit every tea light candle we had. And quite soon after, the Chinese arrived. And I met them outside. And I had to explain through the interpreter that, you know, we don't have any electricity. We like don't actually have furniture. We don't have anything, and we don't even have electricity. But I told them we had like warm hearts and big hugs to share with them. And I explained how this is thousands of years of Jewish history. And I was so happy it wasn't like a Jewish group who would just look at us and go like, this is so old-fashioned. Why can't you just... And they all clapped, and we had the most amazing Shabbat meal at candlelight. And the group leader sent me a message and told me that his group said it was the most impactful, authentic experience they had in their whole Israel trip.
I remember that
we had some war stories.
I think what is so unique and so special about this is that as crazy as these stories sound, they're actually quite typical. This is what we all experience as hosts. And, you know, the hosts, the families are just such special people. And to be able to bring in people from all over the world and just share that light is truly, truly a gift. Wow.
It's so powerful. It's so incredible.
Wow.
I always think to myself, like, these people are gatekeepers, decision makers, influencers, often very well connected people. And each one of them, you know, goes back and has a different perspective of Israel and of Judaism and what a Jewish family is. And you know, so one of my friends always jokes, he works for the government, and he always says it takes 2 South Africans living in Israel to be hosting Chinese businessmen and influencing Israel's foreign economics for the Chinese investments. And it's like, you know, it's a crazy story, but it's true.
It is. It is so true. We really are, in a way, ambassadors for the Jewish people. You know, one knedlach at a time.
It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. So, you know, there's over 200 families in the Shabbat of Lifetime community, and I know them all. I've been in their homes, you know, I know them as friends. But, you know, your hosting, honestly, is very special. What is your secret sauce? What is your secret sauce for the other Shabbat of a Lifetime hosts, or for just anybody that's watching or listening to this somewhere out there and, you know, wants to kind of inspire or rekindle, you know, that Shabbat flame in their lives?
So firstly, you have to just believe in the mission. Like, I truly, truly believe that you can impact people. And you know what? I didn't grow up religious, neither did Gavin. And one of the first things that impacted me was when I was invited to families and I saw like the kids stand on a chair and say Devar Torah, or I saw people sitting around the table, and it was like so normal. And that left such a lasting impression on me. And I always think about, never mind Hasbara and Israel and how you can change the economic policy of Chinese investment, but even just at a like really basic level, people come and they see genuine, authentic experience. That's what people are craving, not something with a marketing filter. And when they come to your home, it's such an opportunity just to let people have a window, not into only our personal soul as a family, but is into the lives of like a Jewish family. And it's so powerful, and it can break down so many, so many stereotypes. And even those who come positive, it's still, it sends them back like inspired and recharged. And it's such an opportunity to have amazing, meaningful conversations. So that's where I'll get to like some of my points. So firstly, believe in the mission and know that you are a change agent every time in your family, not just me, not just my husband, but my kids. And I always try and know my audience, because if you know your audience, you know, you can figure out what hot buttons are. So I always like we get these very limited information from Seoul, like, I don't know, a group of international Singapore business students, and from there I'm supposed to guess exactly what they're. But I do make a point as soon as they arrive to find out who their leaders are, and I find out where they've been, how long they've been in Israel, how many of the people in the group are their first time, what was the motivation of bringing them. Because when I understand that, when you know that you're going to have a group of Stanford students, international relations students who are coming on a fact-finding mission, or East German politicians on a fact-finding mission, and Friday night dinners at Samuel's and lunches in Gaza, you know that you're going to have a different kind of conversation than if you have evangelical Christians or a Chinese group who's coming to understand Jewish values. So each group, if you know what their hot button, and then that's when they sit down, so most of you probably don't host 40 or 50 people. So we actually have multiple tables and everybody's spread around. I don't think we've ever had a small group. So I can't actually tell you what a small group of soul looks like.
You've never had a small group.
But when we have these big groups, immediately we stand up, one of us, Gavin and I, and the first thing we tell them, we say like Shabbat Shalom, and we say, we are so happy you're here because we love hosting. You've given us the opportunity to meet new people. We tell them we have the opportunity to travel in our living room, and that we've been to 87 countries, and we love hosting, and we love traveling. So immediately they go from like, I wonder why these people are hosting, what's their agenda, you know, how do I have to behave? You like just break the ice immediately. True. So you have to just like disarm them with warmth and kindness and smiles, and my kids are all there smiling. And that's actually really important. We let our kids sit not with us, but amongst the guests. They want to meet. And my kids love meeting people, and it's really great for the people. So we never sit as a family, all of us, like in one spot. We always have the kids connect. Then we keep explanations short. And I remember when I was becoming religious and I would go to families' homes in like Jerusalem, Jeff Sadell would sit here, and sometimes they would just go on and on and on. And I like had no clue what they were talking about anyway. So we keep it short, sweet, make it relevant, keep the show on the road. So just enough that they get a taste and not go like, oh my gosh, how long is this conversation going to go? Nothing we ever say is long. Then when while people are washing and then we always schmooze and we make sure we like it just as friendly as we can be. When they sit down, I always break the ice because people are always a bit hesitant to eat. And I always say to them, I explain to them what the food is, and I always use the skog as an example. And I say, this is only for real men and real women. Anybody brave enough to try it? And there's always like someone who, you just break the ice. And it's the same thing when the soup comes out, especially if it's chicken soup. I'm like, guys, you've all been in Israel. You're all trying to understand Israel and the culture and Jewish people and how we've survived. And you've gone to Yad Vashem. And I said, but you know what? Now you're tasting the real, real key to Jewish survival. But I make jokes like that, and it just arms and like relaxes the whole thing.
And the wine. Don't forget the wine.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. So we tell people that the most important thing at our meals is wine. And if you notice my book, Chutzpah, Wisdom and Wine, there's a lot of theme of wine. And I actually believe that, I mean, yes, wine is a great opportunity to get people to like lower it a notch and relax. But I also think there's like something very spiritual about wine. People have it and they like absorb the atmosphere. And even when we have groups that don't drink wine because of religious reasons, I tell them they're not exempt from making l'chaims. So I explain to them that a l'chaim means to life. And I say, as Jewish people, we've been through so much and we're living in Israel and we say to life to everything. And I say, everybody in this room is going to be a volunteer or victim, but at some point we're going to all make a l'chaim. You can make it on water, you can make it on grape juice, you can make it on wine. But I insist on l'chaim. So even if they're a non-drinking group, they still drink water l'chaims, or grape juice l'chaims. But it immediately gets people engaged. So we do the courses. In the first course, once they've eaten and they've got a little bit of food in their stomach and they're not so anxious, we ask for volunteers to make a l'chaim. And it really connects the groups when they stand up and, I'm very strict on l'chaims, they're not allowed to be more. I told them it can be as long as a tweet. So if it's longer than a tweet, like how Twitter cuts you off. So, because you don't want anybody going on and speaking about 4 hours. So we set the agenda, make sure the l'chaims are, and I tell them we're not listening to stories, we're listening to a l'chaim, and they go around and they do it. And then we have a few l'chaims, and then we go to the next course, and we break up first course, and then we have fish. And then during fish, we make more l'chaims, and we make sure they're singing. And even if they can't sing, then my husband will say to them, you know what, and nigun is a way you connect, and he gives a little thing about words, and then we just get everybody and whether they're from on the table. But we make sure there's like the Shabbos atmosphere, we get the l'chaims, but we're also always connecting. And I'm always sharing with them things that are going on. If it's times of terrorism, I tell them what it feels like to be living in Israel. It could be groups that are, I explain to them where we live, Emigrafa'im, that it has historical significance, and we live in the German colony, and how it has like modern historical significance. And here we are, true wandering Jews that made it through all these countries to be back home, and we arrived, as the prophecies say, on the wings of an eagle, and from all corners of the world. And I really bring in like contemporary, I bring in Torah, we make it singing, we make l'chaims. The other thing, when I say about kids, each of my kids speak. Whether they want to or not, they cannot get out of speaking. They can speak for 2 minutes, but it impacts people so much when they hear the children. It's one of the most powerful moments in the whole Shabbat.
So much.
They have no choice. They have to speak. And I also make sure that the Melavim make the chaims, because it's their opportunity to meet Israelis as opposed to us Olim. And
just wait, for people that don't know about this Shabbat of a Lifetime setup, so normally joining the families are 1, 2, sometimes even 3 Israeli students that are probably in Hebrew University or something like that, and they join us for the meal, and they become extended parts of our family for that hour, 2, 3 hours, and that's what we call them Melavim. In Hebrew means literally escorts. They're extended parts of our family, and that's what Jodi's speaking about.
Yeah, and I think it's very powerful not only to hear from the host, but to hear from local people. And one of the things I always do, if they're coming by bus, or I always ask the driver if they want to come. And sometimes we've had Israeli bus drivers, and on occasion even the Arab bus drivers will join us.
True.
And it actually breaks, like usually the group are so impressed that I've invited the driver.
Yeah, of course.
And the driver, they don't always come, but I always offer them. And sometimes they make l'chaims, and sometimes they're the most emotional, because they were expecting to like just sit in their bus and snooze for a while. And like the last thing they ever thought they would do was come to like a dati, a religious family for a Shabbat meal ever, or a Jewish family for that matter. So sometimes it just brings in some like interesting angles to the whole thing. And one of the questions I always ask the groups, I say, is Israel different to the Israel you thought from BBC or CNN? And that automatically gets the discussion going, because they only have to have been in Israel 24 hours, and they already know it's not the same as what the news.
Well, so they didn't expect hummus for breakfast, hummus for lunch, hummus for dinner.
Yes, exactly.
And hummus in the toothpaste.
And they also think that you're going to be like, only see soldiers. They're always like shocked that people sit on beaches and outdoor cafes and look happy.
And everything is the desert.
So, and then when they do, we give them an opportunity to ask questions, and we answer very honestly. So when people ask me like, how was it moving to Israel? Was this always your dream? I never give the Aliyah Shaliach speech only. I
only expect you to give the Jodi answer.
And we tell them the truth. You know, we let them know how difficult it was, why it was important for us to make the decision. But I really think people appreciate authenticity and honesty, because it's easy to go, you know, we're Jews and we have been dreaming about this for thousands of years and we live here. But, you know, they can play a YouTube video and hear that also. They're in my home, and this is an opportunity for them to connect with real people, real challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly. Sometimes we have groups who challenge us, especially these university groups, about Israel and politics. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay for them to challenge us.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the things that, someone that is going to be watching this in a year from now, or 10 years, or maybe even 100 years, someone will find an archive, something that is maybe just different for anybody watching at another time, is that we're in the middle of this Corona season, in this crazy time in human history, especially in the 21st century. Suddenly just everything has stopped. And for the last 4 or 5 months, really, we haven't seen any guests. And, several hosts have turned to me, expressing how much they miss it. And I've seen, on Facebook and on social media, people just sharing their feelings. And we've been receiving, videos and messages from guests that, that they so miss that experience of just meeting people in a genuine way, exactly how you described it. So, what does post-Corona look like for you?
I dream about the day that I can travel my living room with all my guests again. I really dream about that. And some of our dearest friends were actually guests. I mean, we've had people who've come for my children's, like bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah, because they were guests that came to our table, and we formed such a good relationship with them that they've literally kept in touch with us, so much so that they wouldn't miss the family somehow. And I miss those genuine relationships. But I also think that there's so much opportunity to connect with people even in Israel. If all of us even just took the opportunity to invite a family that might never have had Shabbat, might never otherwise do Shabbat, or people you meet in your work context, at least for that we can invite our local friends and give them a taste of the mission of Shabbat of a lifetime.
True.
And I hope that, from these, we always have the opportunity to learn from everything, as painful it is. And I'm hoping that, Nadia, you've told me some of your amazing ideas that you have for Shabbat of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And hopefully that you'll one day resume all the tourists and the travel, and these other ideas which are emerging in response to Corona will also be an opportunity to use the power of this host community to reach people, because you have so many, I'm always amazed at how many amazing people are part of this community, people who are so accomplished, each one in their own right, and successful, and so much to give, and to take the power of that. And maybe, we never realized we'd be doing so much on Zoom, but there's an upside to it, because we can transport the power of this community outside of Shabbat meals.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely. So you've shared really nothing, very, very little about your book. Share a little bit about this journey, this book that you wrote.
So I've been writing a blog for many years on a blog called Metro Ema that was very popular. And I think you're getting the vibe that the way I present myself and talk is Jodi unfiltered. And I think what people really appreciated with my book was my blogs, was the fact that it was real life. There was no rose-colored spectacles. There was no marketing filter. It was when I hated Israel, it was a hate, why? And when I loved, it was loved. And when I'm dealing with my daughter with special needs, it was the raw pain I was feeling, or the exhilaration at her successes. And people really appreciated the fact that it's live and real and unfiltered. And for 3 years, I had a plan. I had in my calendar Monday and Wednesdays I was doing Alpine, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I was writing my book, but nothing happened. And I just didn't really make any progress. And then last year, the person who was my mentor, who a religious old woman who had really influenced my journey so much, passed away. And straight after the funeral, I took a group to Morocco. So part of what I do in my not-for-profit is we take heritage trips. And we were in Marrakesh at a family. So Marrakesh is, when you go to meals, it's a bit like Shabbat of a lifetime in Marrakesh, where they have all these random tourists in people's homes. And that's how you get kosher food. You eat in these people's homes. And there was our group, and 25 people, mixed, religious, not religious. And there was a group of Alexander Hasidim who were there for 30 men for someone's 50th birthday. And I decided, because I always make l'chaims, that I need to make l'chaim on Shabbat. So I stood up in front of this like completely diverse group. There were some random like individual tourists, my group, and the Chassidim. And I started to talk and tell a little bit about my journey. And I assure you, they've never seen a woman that looked like me speak. And they were all listening, and they were like listening to me in amazement. And afterwards, they came to me and they said, wow, we never thought we'd come to Marrakesh and be so inspired. This was the most inspiring talk we've ever heard in our entire life. Wow, this is, and I walked out of there and I was like, you know what, in honor of her neshama, this lady who had impacted my life so much, I was like, I realized I actually have I knew that I always had a message, but I have to give a voice to this message. I have to put it out there in a more formal way. And I came back from Morocco, started writing the book. That was February last year. And the book is basically the journey of a modern Jewish mom, a Jewish woman, a modern Jewish woman, using ancient Torah values. My life is all about the combination of being, and you know, Nati's always fascinated by my two worlds, this modern woman and the Torah values. And there's very strong messages in there because my daughter, although the book isn't about her, I have a 12-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. And she was the person who initially gave me the voice because I know you're not going to believe this, but I was really once upon a time, about 12 years ago, before my daughter was born, very, very shy, never spoke in public ever, never said a word.
No,
I told
I
you.
don't believe you. I don't believe you.
It's true. And and that's actually when I started having to drink wine. When I went to speak publicly, I had to have some wine just to get through it. And then I realized the power of wine, but I really was shy. And my daughter gave me a reason to claim my voice. I became Mama Grizzly over my fight for inclusion. And along the way, I also realized that as much as she was my inspiration, she was teaching me so many messages. And one of the powerful messages in the book is that life does not have to be perfect to be wonderful.
Yeah.
And another very strong message in the book, and I think it applies to all of us going through COVID now, it's about pivoting in the face of challenge. Yeah. And we're all facing that. And when the concept in the book is, you know, we're all given cards in life. We all dealt cards. Right now, we've all been like, you know, bamboozled by the new deck of cards that we've been given because we all thought we knew which ones we had, but now we've been given a new set of cards. But it's about like in life, we're all just given a hand. We dealt a hand. And so many of us spend so much time trying to be what we're not or figuring out what we're meant to do. And this is about taking the cards you're dealt and making your life and making the best of it and pivoting in spite of challenges and going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, that's
the
Jodi.
Message.
Amazing. That is exactly Jodi. Wow. So wait, so has it been published? Where can we buy it? Is it in stores, Amazon?
Yes. So the book is available for those who have access in the US in print version in Amazon. We also have an ebook on Amazon, which you don't have to, everyone thinks you have to have a Kindle. No, you can just download the ebook to any device and just put the Kindle reading application on any mobile device or computer. As well, you can get it from me in Israel. We've sold hundreds of books here. And I have a website, Jodi's Voice, info@Jodi's Voice, and Nati, you can send that out afterwards as well. Okay. So info@Jodi's Voice to buy the book, or Amazon, and you can ask Nati as well, and we will make sure you get your signed copy. I'll even autograph it in case one day it's valuable in Sotheby's or Christie's. So,
I'm looking forward to reading your book now. It's a little taste of a very special woman on a very special journey. And it is my uttermost pleasure to be on this journey together with you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your stories, and sharing your home, opening up your home and your special family and just yourself.
Our pleasure. We love
really
it. It drives us.
Amazing. Any message for anybody watching to take home with them?
Yep. you can all go be unstoppable, take all those yearnings you have as a soul host, put it to good use, and invite someone to your home, reach out, share something on Facebook that's positive, share something about Israel. Each one of us can be unstoppable and change the world in our own little way.
God bless you, Jodi. God bless us all, and God bless this world with health and happiness. Thank you for being the light that you are, and thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you, Nati.